Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the ASX and Sectors weekly chart analysis for the week ending 28th of June 2024. First chart is the S&P ASX 200 index, the XJO. Put some lines in so you can see where we are. I marked this high here. It corresponds nicely with this level. These two bars, we don't mark them because they were Christmas and New Year's weeks, which were very low volume and likely to be insignificant. This is the highs of the range up here. This is the important level that I'm watching as a level where if price can sustainably move above that level, the market will likely trade with a positive influence. This week, price traded below the 3-week low and would have threatened anyone who bought in these bars that the market was going to break down. The market recovered nicely to close just below the important level and looks well placed to issue a challenge to that level at some point in the future. Now, because volume was above average, you may see some testing for supply early next week. That would make a lot of sense. And if that testing for supply proves that selling pressure is low and trading conditions are relatively favourable, I expect an attempt to push higher in response. ASX mid-cap sector, and similar to the XJO parent index, here's the highs of the range, here's the lows of the range. The important level in this chart isn't so clear. Comes through there, just above the 9600 level on this chart. Now we'll note last week, spread narrowed considerably. Volume wasn't quite that high. That was affected by options and futures expiry day. But this week, volume was again slightly above average. Spread was narrower than average. And the price is still holding on, almost adjacent to that bar's low. So the market is reluctant to break down. Here's the lows of the range through there. So there's an attempt to support the market this week. And this sector will trade somewhat similar to the parent index, the XJO. So if it's testing for supply early, then I imagine this market will do a similar thing. And if supply is found to be low, this market will attempt to break higher as well. Similar again for the small ordinaries. This market's a little more compressed than the other two. You can see that the highs of the range correspond with that level that I keep mentioning. Lows of the range come through here. You can see the market did trade slightly below the lows this week and recovered nicely to finish just above again. I expect this market will follow suit and attempt to test for supply early next week. And if successful, it'll be dragged higher along with the larger two indexes. This is the financial sector. The financial sector has probably been one of the strongest sectors recently. Have this shakeout sort of bar in the background where price recovered nicely, broke out above it here, tested for supply for 1 week, pushed above again last week, and this week has traded back through the range of this bar and recovered nicely to close back above the important level, the breakout line here. You'll also note that the market is trading above the previous highs. So this market's already ahead of the parent index and leading somewhat. And being the largest sector, this market will dominate a lot of the trading on the XJO. So this is looking quite positive as well for an attempt to push higher at some point when trading conditions allow. This is the metals and mining subsector, where I'm trying to show the miners in particular. Here's the lows of the range. The market is threatening to break down. Here's the breakdown line above where there's likely to be resistance above that. Now the market is attempting to hold on and threatening to break down. Spread was relatively narrow this week and volume was above average. It was the same last week, but this volume was affected by options and futures expiry. So it would have been lower than that and possibly only average or below. But the last 2 weeks suggest that there is an attempt to support the market. Whether it's going to be successful or not is another thing at this point, but there's an attempt to do so. So we'll have to watch for the response. And at some point, the response will tell us whether we're going to break down further or whether the market's going to hold on and accumulate and perhaps move up and challenge this first breakdown level at some point in the future. This is the ASX gold sector, and it too has been having a bit of a tough time of it. You can see the market was looking pretty comfortable. Now there's probably been a little bit of selling pressure up here as the gold price faltered, and the market did dip below that level 3 weeks ago, attempted to recover. It's pulled back and recovered somewhat this week on pretty good volume. So there's still an attempt to support the market, or at least some speculative support. We'll just have to see. Obviously, this market's going to trade somewhat similar to the gold price itself. But there has been an attempt to support the market this week with the close well off the week's low and back above this bar's low. So we'll see how that market responds. There's speculative support, and seeing volume was pretty strong. It may well be good support. We'll have to wait and see what the response is like. This is the ASX energy sector, which saw a little bit of buying support come in over the last 2 weeks. Market was threatening the lows of the range down here and has recovered to push back above it this week on slightly above average volume. Last week's volume was affected by options and futures expiry. That wouldn't have been quite that high. This was a good push higher under the circumstances and a good defence of the lows of the range. I expect the market will probably attempt to trade in here for a period of time, unless the underlying energy markets really take off, which is possibly unlikely at this point. But hopefully you see the market go through some consolidation and accumulation down here, at least to some degree, before there's any attempt to push higher. Highs of the range come through here. So that's the first level where you would expect some resistance up here. The ASX healthcare sector has a nice shakeout in the background. You'll see price was spending quite a bit of time in consolidation mode. There was a shakeout, some further consolidation. Price broke out above that level here, tested for supply, broke out a second time, and this week the market has traded back through the range of this bar, which did have above average volume. Price did come back through that bar's range this week, effectively testing it for supply, before recovering nicely to close up near the week's high on still pretty strong volume. This market may well test for supply, similar to the larger sectors. Often when there is high volume like this, the market will test for supply, especially on a Monday. So that's a high probability early in the week, and then a push higher if trading conditions are favourable and selling pressure is found to be low. ASX industrial sector, that was the important level previously. It's kind of been fine-tuned to this level here. You could put both through if you wanted to, like this, but I'd rather keep it a bit cleaner, just leave it like that. These levels do fine-tune over time, and it's sort of traded like that now. This is the important level now, the important lows of the range. There's likely to be some support down through here, but this is the important level now that's arrowed. Highs of the range are going to be through here now, and the market traded below all these bars low, so many weeks as a shakeout. Volume was slightly above the average. The close was well off the lows. Good buying support has come into the market this week off the lows, and I would expect perhaps following a test for supply, seeing volume was pretty good, an attempt to push higher. Now there's likely to be some sort of resistance at this 7,000 level here, and then again some further resistance up here. Just back to the XJO quickly. This market did trade below the 3-week low this week. That would have threatened quite a few people in the market. Volume was above average and prices traded back to the important level, which is just a fraction below 7,800. Given any kind of favourable trading conditions next week, I expect a pretty good attempt to push higher, perhaps following a test for supply. Okay, thanks for your time. See ya.